Welcome to the project. Tonight, is Australia set to be screwed over on AUKUS? Why some are calling for the submarine deal to be scrapped. We speak to former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull.
Also, the so-called mad effing witches taking on the big guys to put a stop to what they say are offensive broadcasters.
Plus, the stars are shining bright with Fatboy Slim, Cody Simpson and Sam Pang.
Wow. Guys, we will reveal how you can make $8 grand just by staying in bed. Now, I've gotten these DMs before, and I don't care how much money it is. I will not send you feet pics, okay?
Sam doesn't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day.
And they're good feet, and they deserve to be reimbursed fairly.
OK, we're coming to you from Gadigal Land tonight with Steve Price. We've got to address this.
Yes. Well, I've been carrying you blokes on my shoulders for the last 15 years, and one finally gave way.
How's the other guy?
No Barbara.
Yeah.
It's just a very boring story about an old shoulder.
Well, as long as your right wing's OK, mate, that's all. Expensive right channel. I know, I love that little 10 logo. We could sell those. That's great, merch.
Well,
whatever.
Glad you're all right.
I'm OK.
All right, let's get into today's top stories now. And the Albanese government says it will refer fresh allegations of CFMEU violence and corruption to the federal police. The allegations include claims female workers have been sexually harassed and assaulted on work sites. Today, Victoria's Premier expanded a police task force to set up to investigate. But opposition leader Peter Dutton says he wants the union disbanded and has called for US-style national racketeering laws.
This is the biggest corruption scandal in our country's history because we are talking about billions of dollars. Now, we're going to clean it up, and the RICO-style laws worked in the United States and they can work here in Australia as well.
Tropical Cyclone Alfred has blown a $1.2 billion hole in the upcoming federal budget, due to be handed down next Tuesday. Confirming there will be no surprises this time round, the Treasurer says there will be a hit to economic growth. Cyclone damage is also expected to put upward pressure on inflation.
We also anticipate that there will be some impact on fruit and vegetable costs, depending on how much of the farmland has been impacted. But also when it comes to building and construction costs.
And imagine getting paid to stay in bed. Well, the European Space Agency is offering 20 volunteers around $8.5 grand each to lay about for 10 days. They'll be submerged up to their torso, floating in containers of water, so researchers can study how space affects the body. The catch is toilet breaks. Volunteers will still be lying down when they go.
That's not the bit that I have a question about.
What's your question?
Where do they go? I don't care what posture.
Have you ever been in a public pool? That's, that's a similar energy, I think, you know.
You think?
I don't know.
You wouldn't...
I presume they've got a bag attached. Waleed.
Oh, OK.
Well, but they're in a flotation thing, aren't they?
That doesn't matter. They've got a bag attached. Look, given... What's that woman with the weird hair who's stuck on the space station? Why don't they just do research into her?
Oh.
Yeah. Why do we need all this stuff done?
Yeah.
It is weird. It's a long time.
Waterbed's pretty fun, though. Now, a donor courier has saved the day driving straight into Cyclone Alfred to ensure a life-saving transplant for leukaemia patient Mia Preston could go ahead in Brisbane. Garth Healy made a 600k mercy dash from Sydney to the New South Wales town of Glen Innes, where he handed over his precious cargo to Queensland paramedics. And thanks to his efforts, the 22-year-old's transplant went ahead with just an hour to spare.
And Garth Healy from Stem Cell Donors Australia joins us now. Garth, this is an extraordinary story. You braved a 600-kilometre drive through what was being touted as a once-in-50-year cyclone to make this delivery. How did all this happen?
Yeah, look, we have been working on this particular case for about 8 weeks. The cells were coming in from America, couriered by a individual by the name of Alex. As it got closer and closer, we realised that we're going to be interrupted to get into Brisbane, and we'd have to look for different methods of getting the cells up to Brisbane.
Yeah, there are different methods, and then there's driving through a cyclone. Yeah. I mean, and I get the stakes are high, but you're still driving into a cyclone. Were you worried about that?
No, not really. I was more worried about the cells and getting to the patient. The patient doesn't have any other choice, and that's it. We're totally dedicated to getting the cells to the patient, because it's the patient's only chance they have of surviving. So singularly focused, get the cells there no matter what.
What would have happened if you hadn't been able to make it? I mean, we know there was a deadline and you had to meet it, but what would have happened if you couldn't have got there?
Oh, look, didn't really want to think about that, really. I would have walked through the rivers to get them there. I think that's what we were. The cells would have got there, they wouldn't have been in very good condition. You have about 72 hours. Most of the time, it takes about 36 to 40 hours to get the cells to a person. Most of them come from overseas in Australia. So we're quite versed in being quite dynamic in the way that we look for solutions. But this was, as I said, a 1 in 50-year event. It never happened before in Australia. So everything worked out for the best.
So when you heard that you had saved young Mia's life, that this had actually all gone ahead, you had an hour to spare, what was that moment like?
Oh, it was amazing, really. I was very relieved, just very thankful to give the opportunity for Mia to survive, give an opportunity for her to recover, give her an opportunity to live life like everyone has. Just really relief, and I was grateful.
Aww.
Well, what an effort, Garth, and I think we can be pretty confident and speak for Mia here and say thank you. And thanks also for speaking to us tonight. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful fella.
What a guy.
Beautiful fella. Guys, let's go to the Sport of Kings, NRL, because Melbourne Storm's got a new sponsor, which I know we're all excited about. It's a driving safety app, but I don't think Jerome Hughes is ready to reveal how much goes on behind the wheel.
You a good driver? Yes, I am a good driver. So, are you a good driver?
Hell yeah, the switcheroo. I did that as well when they pulled me over. They were like, were you on your phone? I'm like, were you on your phone? And then they say, get out of the car, sir, and they cuff me.
Yeah.
And then what, you cuff them?
And then I cuff them, and it just never ends.
Yeah. What a lark.
It is time for a break. We'll see you very soon.
It was a bad weekend of sports for me, all right? The Swans lost by 4, Dragons got pipped by a point, and at the Grand Prix, my man Oscar spun out more than Sarah Harris at school pickup. Lots to get into. Let's do sports. All right, let's go back to the Grand Prix now. It's done and dusted for another year, and boy, it was a wet one. Look at that. Just asked Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and his team.
Is there a leakage?
A leakage of what?
I have the seat full of water, like full of water.
Must be the water.
Words of thanks, Captain Obvious. When asked why he wasn't winning the race, the team said, have you tried going faster? Which I thought was good advice as well. Lewis Hamilton's got a new team, and by the sound of things, also a new backseat driver.
Yeah, no problem. Just don't repeat everything, please.
Understood. K1, may you close?
Insert, please.
K1, available?
Yes, I know. Leave me to it, please.
To avoid the denied DRS, we suggest upshift and then DRS.
Please leave it. Yes, leave it.
Just leave it. Or imagine telling Lewis Hamilton how to drive. That would be like me telling Pricey how to shop in the kids' clothing section. I'm so sorry. No, today of all days. I'm on autopilot. I'm sorry, Pricey. NRL is back with a bang, and whatever you want to call this.
String of passes from the Tigers, Luai. And Algerine Buller. He slipped into the tackle. I reckon Joe over Gary gave him a kiss.
I think he did.
He's giving him a kiss on the ear.
That's also what John Hopewadi calls first base. That's an old reference to a rugby league story. Look it up. Now, a real feel-good soccer story here, unless you're Waleed.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, mate. Newcastle beating Liverpool 2-1 to win their first domestic trophy in 70 years. But boy, did Newcastle manager Eddie Howe's post-match presser get off to quite a bizarre start.
If you can smell a strange smell, that's me.
Also, what I said the morning after the Logies when I walked into work. It's okay because, well, don't worry, I know Liverpool lost, but AFL's back. And to take your mind off Liverpool, check out this hanger in the Suns' demolition of the Eagles. Look at that. Unbelievable. That's Ben King right there. Forget Ben King. The score was a spanking as well, by the way. Now, it's amazing because the skills can be a bit off early in the season, like with this umpire.
What?
Is that how you did your shoulder, Pricey? What? That's crazy. And his excuse for why his hands were slippery weren't exactly convincing.
Must be the water.
Yeah. Gosh, that was.
Yeah.
That's sport. Hey, we all know Alfred battered the Gold Coast beaches. So here's the Mayor, Tom Tate, with an important update. And don't worry, the great man, Tom, he's buttoned up on all the important details.
Hickman's got to go. We're going to have to take some sand up north into what's that beach there again?
Oh, my God, Queensland, beautiful one day. Where is it the next?
Well, our next guest is one of the country's best triple threats.
It's the catchy chorus that made Cody Simpson a global pop star at just 14 and laid the foundation for a career like no other. In 2019, Cody traded the stage for the pool. His grit and determination helping land his relay team's 2 podium finishes at the Birmingham Com Games.
Is it 3 gold on the night for the Australians? Yes, it is. Defending their title.
Now our favourite chameleon is suiting up and stepping into one of musical theatre's most iconic roles.
Luck be a lady.
Big welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Huge welcome. They think you're a dreamboat.
Thank you.
They
do. They do.
Well, we all do. How does it feel to be out of the Speedos and back on stage belting out
I liked
tunes?
the out of the Speedo into the tuxedo thing. I thought that was very
yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that one.
It's
it feels amazing. Oh, we've been in rehearsal for the last month and I'm just having a ball. Yeah. The show is a special show and it's like a fun way to return to the stage.
Well, you are the new
Absolutely.
star of Guys and Dolls. Why this role? Why this production?
I've had a keen interest in musical theatre for a long time. Pre-COVID, I did a show on Broadway, and I always said after COVID sort of shut everything down, and I went back to swimming, and then I always said beyond that I'd love to do another production, and auditions for this came up, and I put my hat in the ring and did the best I could and got the role, and it was like just an honour to be part of this. It's one of my favourite musicals in general. I'm a huge Frank Sinatra fan, and so I knew of the movie before I'd ever sort of seen it on stage anywhere, you know. So it's very cool to be part of this production here because it's a very unique one. It's outdoors, and our stage is the size of a footy field. It's
oh my God.
We have a taxi, an old school taxi that's the size of a bus on the stage. It moves around on this thing. It's really cool. Yeah.
I'm hearing accents here already. Obviously, this is set in New York. How do you go with the?
It is,
Yorker accent?
yeah. My character's a little bit more standard American, which was good for me because it's easier for me having lived there.
Drop some for us.
He in the story, he's from Colorado, but he's sort of a bit of a drifter. He's lived and existed in many places.
So
he's
you got
not
a Midwestern accent, something like that.
I've got a bit of a hybrid. Yeah.
I mean, all you had to do was make him a Queenslander. It would have been really.
How's it
Guy
going?
from the Gold Coast. Yeah.
Now, did Marlon Brando play? Because
Marlon Brando played the role in the film, 1955 film.
So here's you, and I reckon there's a bit of Brando about this. Have we got this photo? Look at this hat.
Oh, wow. It's a good era for you.
Yeah.
That's day one rehearsal. Yeah.
Did you just turn up like that, or is that part of the role?
That was actually how or the hat was part of it, but the rest I turned up. Yeah. So I turned up, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was very stylish.
Method acting.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Now, I feel like you could be the most talented person on earth, really. The disciplines that you have, your swimming career, your singing career. Is there a world, I don't know if it's a sport or if it's a performance, where you sing in the water? And if so, would you be the best in the world at that?
Well, that was a whole joke because the show is our stage is literally over the water, that I'm the cast lifeguard. And that maybe my character should enter by swimming across from the opera house to the stage. But I don't know. I probably need to create some kind of role for me that allows me to do all my things. Yeah.
It is rare that someone is that good at two completely separate things. Were there any other members of the swim team who had like some other talent that we didn't hear about?
That you can tell us about.
Then no. God, nothing crazy. I mean,
I love this
definitely
answer
no
'cause
other
it's like,
singers.
No one's as good as me.
I mean, not that I knew of. They're all they're absolutely incredible at swimming, and I tried to do my best to keep up. And God, I wish I had a better answer for you there.
No.
Yeah.
You know, you shared on Instagram that you are back in the studio making music, which is making a lot of people happy. Does that mean there's a new album?
That isn't the studio. That's my room, my house. But this was like my little makeshift thing. I was recording some vocals. I had the mattress up against the wall for the acoustics. It was just, you know, I haven't been in the music business for a while, so this is all I could afford. But no, I spent the month in LA in January working on new material, and I'm going to go back over after this show ends and finish the album, and I'm really excited to be kind of back doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots to look forward to.
Yeah.
Songs about black lines on the bottom of pools. It's going to be amazing. Guys and Dolls opens in Sydney on Friday. Tickets are on sale now. We didn't get to introduce him, so do you just want to thank him before we even get to that?
As we catch up with Australia's newest Tonight Show host, Sam Pang, and legendary DJ Fatboy Slim. You are watching The Project.
Fears of broken promises and blatant betrayal are tonight fueling calls for Australia to ditch our multi-billion-dollar nuclear sub-deal with the US. So are we in danger of being dudded by Donald?
It is a really bad deal. So people say, will Donald Trump like it? Well, of course he'd like it. It's such a bad deal for us.
Malcolm Turnbull today going nuclear on our nuclear submarines deal.
Back of his mind, he'll be thinking, who are these dumb guys that agreed to this deal?
The former PM joining a growing chorus of voices warning our $368 billion purchase of at least 8 American submarines under AUKUS is no guarantee the subs will be delivered.
The most likely outcome is that we will end up with no submarines of our own.
The problem? A caveat, which means receipt of the subs depends on the US being able to sustain its own Navy capabilities first, which it's not sure it can.
If we can produce the attack submarines in sufficient number and sufficient speed, then great. But if we can't, that becomes a very difficult problem.
And then there's the issue of whether Americans will want to honour the deal under Trump.
Be discussing AUKUS with the Prime Minister, sir.
What does that mean?
Today, a Labor Party grassroots campaign writing a letter to every candidate and MP calling for AUKUS to be dumped.
There's a growing concern about developments in the US under Trump. The US government cannot be relied upon to either deliver these submarines or come to Australia's assistance if something happened.
Trump's treatment towards allies in the tariff wars triggering concerns.
He's attacking allies and ripping up long-standing arrangements. We should get out of AUKUS.
What's your answer, Adam? I mean, we had a Chinese battleship, one of the best in the world, off the coast of Sydney, firing off missiles, live fire. And you are saying we can just do this without the United States of America. So who are we going to do it with? You are totally and utterly dangerously naive.
The government, which in January made an $800 million down payment, and the opposition are vowing to stay the course.
It's a long-term agreement which will survive changes of government on both sides.
We want to see AUKUS succeed.
But as Trump rewrites the rule book, are we just some
dumb guys
who need to jump ship?
Well, former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is with us now. Malcolm, so you seem to think that we're never going to see these US submarines that we've been promised. Is that right?
Look, I think it's very unlikely, Waleed, really very unlikely. I mean, look, they're great submarines, there's no doubt about that. But the problem is that the deal that was done was a very, very bad deal for Australia. So we're paying the Americans $3 billion to support their submarine industry, but they do not have an obligation to transfer or sell any submarines to us unless their president at the time, which would be, say, around 2030, 2031, certifies that the transfer of the submarines would not degrade the undersea capability of the US Navy. Now, right now, they are short of submarines. They're producing about half as many as they should be producing. And by 2032, when we're meant to get the first one, they will be more than 20 submarines short of what they need. So it's very, very unlikely that the president of the day is going to say, no, we don't need those subs. We can sell them to the Aussies. So I think, regrettably, the shot of the great AUKUS submarine project is that we will end up with no submarines.
Is this about you being upset because you were the architect of the French deal and you'd rather this gets torn up and we go back to that?
No, I've just explained the situation. I mean, the legislation is very clear. We've taken that risk, and it is a massive risk. And you'd have to say, being objective about it, that it is very unlikely that we will get a Virginia-class submarine. Now, this has got nothing to do with Donald Trump. You could have a president who is the most pro-Australian there ever has been. There could be a whole row of, stuffed kangaroos and koalas on the mantelpiece. But at the end of the day, the legislation, the American legislation, requires him or her to ask does the US Navy need these subs? And you'd have to say today the answer would unquestionably be yes. And I don't think, and most people who are familiar with this don't think it will change between now and 2032. We're providing a submarine base in Perth for the Americans, and they'll have submarines there, and I suppose we will hope that their submarines will protect us. But we will not have any sovereign submarine capability of our own. It's a fiasco, I'm afraid. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm just being objective about it.
If you were still Prime Minister, how would you feel about an ex-Prime Minister coming out and talking like this at such a delicate time?
Well,
I mean, obviously Peter Dutton would like you to shut up, and so would Albo, presumably.
Well, so would you, presumably, but you shouldn't have asked me to come on the program.
Not my choice, Sam.
Listen, we believe in free speech in Australia. Every Australian is entitled to free speech, even former Prime Ministers.
What would you do if you were PM again in this situation?
If I was in Albanese's position, the one solution may be that we just don't have any submarines. We have Australians serving on American submarines under an American flag. But, that's a big loss to our sovereignty. But the first thing you've got to do is tell the truth. But what politicians are not doing, and with respect to Steve, who'd like me to say nothing, it's one thing to say former Prime Ministers shouldn't say anything. I'd like current Prime Ministers and wannabe Prime Ministers like Peter Dutton to be actually open, being honest about this and saying, yes, there is a risk that we won't get these subs. It's contemplated in the legislation. It's contemplated by the parties. This is what my plan is. But we have heard a big silence on that score.
Are you missing the top job, Malcolm? Would you like to be PM again?
No, it was a great honour, and I had a lot of fun with it, fun in their job, and got a lot of good things done. But that's it. You can't do everything.
It's not impossible. Donald Trump did it,
Yes, well, and I'm only 70, you see, and he's 78. So there you go. So I've got anything could happen. But I think it's
good.
My parliamentary days are over. Although I tell you, I was in Canberra today, and I can go into Parliament now without the slightest touch of PTSD. So that's good.
Malcolm Turnbull, thank you very much for your time.
Great to see you all.
Really?
You two should go golfing together.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of time on his hands.
I would love to
I'd
see
rather
you guys.
stick pins in my eyes.
Oh, my God, what a show.
Taking on the PM with one hand, the other one tied into his front. You are watching The Project. We're back in just a moment. This is The Project. Welcome back.
Yeah, the people who make a living pushing buttons, making big bucks from stirring the pot. But there's a controversial grassroots group targeting shock jocks, proving not all publicity is good publicity. A warning, this piece contains offensive language. That's their thing, right?
It's just completely unacceptable.
It is disgusting. It is revolting.
They were just shocking comments.
He outraged our sporting nation.
You know what they remind me of? Year 10 girls. Now, I'm sorry to undermine the whole sport, but that's what I think of it, so you can stick it up your arse.
Triple M's response was swift.
Marty Sheargold has been forced to apologise.
Axed over deeply offensive on-air comments.
Shock jocks have been a staple of Aussie radio for decades.
You absolutely gutless wonder. Got any men's sport? Hang on that bitch! You're gone!
Going mostly unchecked by regulators.
I mean, it is vulgar.
What's your biggest number like letting all the blokes run a train? Like, how many guys have you had to go at once?
But there's a group of online activists moving to stop them in their tracks. Mad witches, and Jenny Hill is at the helm.
What we object to is content that is demeaning to women, that is objectifying, that is sexualising, racist, homophobic, transphobic. So it runs the whole gamut of abuse towards anyone, basically, who's not a straight white male.
MFW formed in 2016 after Peter Dutton sent this message about journalist Samantha Maiden to journalist Samantha Maiden. And in 2019, they started rallying advertisers on 2GB to boycott Alan Jones's show after he said...
She's a clown, Jacinda Ardern, a complete clown. I just wonder whether Scott Morrison's going to be fully briefed to shove a sock down her throat. I mean, she is a joke, this woman, and an absolute and utter lightweight.
MFW volunteers flooded companies who had ads on his show with calls and emails. One business says it received thousands of messages in just hours.
We've never called for anyone to be sacked. What we want is accountability and genuine remorse and a genuine commitment not to undertake that behaviour again.
Hundreds of advertisers pulled from the station, costing it millions. 9 months after making those comments, Jones departed 2GB.
All the best. Goodbye.
Brilliant, man.
But it only took days for Triple M and Marty Sheargold to part ways. MFW did not start a campaign on him.
If you think about the demise of these really high-profile radio personalities that really dominated the airwave, it would indicate that as an audience, we're a bit tired of this type of programming.
Kyle Sandilands calls us pearl clutchers. I think he thinks we're just a group of older women who object to sexual content, and that's not true at all.
They say they have a 200,000 strong following. Behind the scenes, there are 30 volunteers and 5 part-time workers. Around 25% of that following are male.
People are tired of being the punching bags of men who run corporations which employ these terrible men, and we now have a way to fight back.
And it's anonymous tip-offs that fuel their campaigns.
There's a lot of people who work for government, for media, for industry who detest what's going on with people like Kyle Sandilands as well. They feel like it brings a stain on their industry.
Last financial year, almost half of the complaints made about decency standards on Australian radio were about the Kyle and Jackie O show.
Your whole just hanging out.
Since signing a $200 million 10-year contract with KIIS FM and expanding down south, MFW have had Kyle and Jackie O in their sights.
All the girls here, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have recorded themselves urinating.
Yeah.
And the boys will try and figure out who's made that wee. If you can't handle some just step back.
Like their 2GB campaign, volunteers note the companies that air ads during the duo's breakfast and National Drive Hour of Power shows and bombard them with these messages.
Absolutely shocked to see you listed as an advertiser. You are enabling the vile, misogynistic, denigrating hate speech of Kyle Sandilands.